In this tutorial, I'm going to explain what is Git repository. So first, let us understand what exactly a repository first, and then look at Git repository and also understand how a repository and Git repository are different. So let's jump in. What is repository? A repository is nothing but a project folder, and we can also imagine it as just a directory. So it can be anything. It can be a Java project or a Python project or a directory with some documents. Or it can be a web project which contains HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files. But this directory need not to be a programming specific project. It can be anything. It can be a directory where you are storing some documents. So now what is a Git repository? A repository that is under Git version control is called Git repository. Now, when a repository becomes Git repository, it will have all the features that are supported by version control system. So you can convert a plain repository into Git repository using git init command. So before going into a git init command, first let's look at the definition that is provided by GitHub. So a repository is the most basic element of GitHub. The easiest way to imagine is as a project folder. A repository contains all of the project files, including the documentation, and stores each file's revision history. And repositories can have multiple collaborators and can be either public or private. And if you don't know what is the version control and version control system, you can read this tutorial. There is also a video tutorial I have provided that also can be found in the same link. And now how to convert an existing repository into Git repository. So there are two ways actually, two ways to create a Git repository. One is converting an existing project directory into Git repository, and another way is cloning an existing repository from a Git server such as GitLab, GitHub, or private corporate GitHub. First, let us look at how to convert an existing project into Git repo. So it's actually very, very simple. You can use this git init command, which does the job. And here is an example. I have a git repo test directory and I want to convert into git project, git repo. So you just need to go inside the git repo test and you need to execute this git init command. Since it is an empty directory, it is saying initialized empty git repository in git repo test.git. So as soon as you have executed git init command, it creates a new hidden subdirectory with the name .git. See, this is a hidden one. So in Windows, you don't see it directly. So you have to enable it via view hidden items. So after you have enabled it, the hidden items, so it looks like this. It contains all the files that are necessary for functioning of the Git version control system. So as soon as you have converted an existing directory into a Git repo, nothing is tracked from this directory. So you need to explicitly add, commit any new files that are added to this repository so that these files are under version control of Git. So how to add the files, how to commit the files in Git, there are some minimum basic commands that I will explain in another tutorial and also provide a video. So the another way is cloning an existing repository. So when do we need to clone an existing repository? For example, your repository exists on a public Git server. So GitHub is a public Git server where you can create account and maintain your repositories. So this is the URL for that. And you want to contribute if there is some open source project and then you want to contribute to it, then you need to clone it to the local system, your Windows or Linux system. And another one is you are working in a corporate company and your team has to collaborate and contribute. So every corporate maintains its own Git server and there only it hosts all the projects. So hence you need to clone and contribute. To do that, the command is git clone. Whenever you did the clone of a project, so the git receives. Git here, git means your local git. So in every system you have to install the git. So that git receives a full copy of the project from server, which contains all the project files as well as the full version control history. So this is the command git clone and URL. So one example is we can just git clone and this is the example. This is the URL of the repo. So it just pulls all the data from this remote repository and creates a new directory with the same name as repo name and initializes the git directory inside it. It looks like this. So I'll conclude this tutorial. So in this tutorial, we have understood what exactly is a Git repository and how it is different from normal repository, and also saw how to initialize a repository locally and clone a repository from remote Git server. And if you don't know how to, or if you don't know what is version control and version control system, you can read this one. And you want to install or set up Git in your local, I mean in the Windows or the Linux of your computer, then watch this video. Thank you.